When we envision war, our minds often conjure images of grand battles, heroic charges, and the strategic brilliance of generals. We see the clash of armies, the thunder of artillery, the raw courage of individuals. Yet, beneath this dramatic surface, an entirely different kind of struggle unfolds, a silent, ceaseless battle against distance, hunger, and entropy. This unseen engine, often overlooked in the annals of glory, is logistics. It is the bedrock upon which every military victory is built, and its failure, the silent architect of countless defeats. Understanding logistics is to understand the true mechanics of power. So, what exactly is military logistics? It's far more than just moving supplies. It's the meticulous planning and execution of moving and maintaining forces. This encompasses everything from the strategic transport of troops and equipment across vast distances to the daily provision of food, water, ammunition, and medical care. It involves building and maintaining infrastructure, repairing vehicles, managing fuel, and ensuring every soldier has what they need, exactly when they need it. Logistics is the lifeblood that courses through the veins of any army, from a small raiding party to a global expeditionary force. From the earliest tribal conflicts, armies have grappled with the fundamental challenge of sustainment. A warrior can only fight if fed, armed, and rested. As armies grew in size and ambition, these challenges multiplied exponentially. Alexander the Great's campaigns across Asia, for instance, relied on elaborate supply trains and establishing forward bases. The logistical hurdles of provisioning thousands of men and their mounts for months or years on end, often through hostile or desolate terrain, were monumental. These early strategists understood that a brilliant battle plan was worthless if the army couldn't reach the battlefield, let alone fight upon it. Few empires understood the power of logistics better than the Romans. Their legions were not merely fighting machines, they were also extraordinary engineers and builders. The vast network of Roman roads, often meticulously paved and graded, wasn't just for civilian travel. It was a military highway system, designed to rapidly move troops, equipment, and crucially, supplies. Forts and garrisons were strategically placed along these routes, serving as supply depots and communication hubs. This infrastructure allowed Rome to project power across a continent and sustain legions thousands of miles from the capital for centuries. The longevity and stability of the Pax Romana, the period of relative peace and minimal expansion in the Roman Empire, was a direct testament to its logistical prowess. With efficient supply lines, legions could be rapidly deployed to quell rebellions, secure borders, and maintain order. Grain from Egypt fed the armies in Britannia, and weapons forged in Gaul equipped soldiers on the Danube. This intricate, continent-spanning supply chain was a marvel of organization, ensuring that even the most distant outposts of the empire were provisioned, connected, and ultimately, Roman. It was an invisible web holding the vast empire together. Centuries later, one of history's most brilliant military minds, Napoleon Bonaparte, would illustrate the catastrophic consequences of logistical failure on an epic scale. In 1812, he assembled the Grand Army, a force of over 600,000 men from across Europe, to invade Russia. Napoleon had mastered maneuver warfare and battlefield tactics, but even his genius would prove insufficient against the vastness of Russia and the unforgiving calculus of supply. The sheer size of his army presented an unprecedented logistical challenge, pushing the limits of what was achievable with 19th-century technology. Napoleon's advance into Russia quickly exposed the fragility of his supply lines. Traditional foraging, effective in denser, wealthier parts of Europe, proved impossible in the sparsely populated, often barren Russian landscape. The scorched earth policy employed by the retreating Russians further exacerbated the problem, denying the Grand Army vital local resources. As the army pushed deeper, the distance from their supply depots became astronomical. Horses, vital for transport and cavalry, died by the tens of thousands from exhaustion and starvation, crippling the army's mobility and logistical capacity. Winter had not even begun, but the logistical war was already being lost. The capture of Moscow brought little relief, as the city was largely burnt and offered no sanctuary. With winter approaching, Napoleon was forced to retreat. This became one of history's most devastating logistical collapses. Starvation, disease, and the relentless Russian winter decimated the Grand Army. Without adequate food, shelter, or warm clothing, soldiers succumbed in droves. What began as a military expedition transformed into a desperate fight for survival, defined not by enemy engagement, but by the absence of fundamental supplies. Of the original 600,000, barely 100,000 survived the retreat. The American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, was another stark demonstration of logistics as a decisive factor. It was a conflict not just of ideologies and armies, but of industrial capacity and infrastructure. The Union, with its burgeoning industrial economy, held a significant advantage in its ability to produce and transport the material of war. The Confederacy, predominantly agrarian and with less developed infrastructure, faced an uphill battle from the outset. This war would become a brutal test of endurance, where the ability to sustain the fight proved as critical as courage on the battlefield. The Union's logistical strength was rooted in its extensive network of railroads and industrial might. Northern factories churned out rifles, cannons, uniforms, and ammunition at an astounding rate. The rail system allowed for the rapid deployment and resupply of troops across vast distances, connecting major cities and industrial centers to the front lines. Control of major rivers like the Mississippi also provided crucial arteries for moving men and supplies deep into Confederate territory. This robust infrastructure ensured that Union armies, despite heavy losses, could be continually replenished and re-equipped, maintaining relentless pressure. Conversely, the Confederacy struggled with a fragmented and underdeveloped rail system, limited industrial capacity, and a devastating naval blockade imposed by the Union. While Confederate soldiers often demonstrated exceptional bravery, their efforts were constantly hampered by shortages. Ammunition, uniforms, medical supplies, and even food became scarce commodities. Worn-out rail lines couldn't handle the strain of war, leading to frequent breakdowns and bottlenecks. This chronic logistical deficit meant that even brilliant tactical victories often couldn't be exploited, as armies simply lacked the means to pursue or sustain their gains. General William Tecumseh Sherman's March to the Sea in 1864 stands as a brutal, yet effective, demonstration of logistics as a weapon. Instead of relying on vulnerable supply lines, Sherman's army lived off the land, foraging as they advanced through Georgia. More significantly, they systematically destroyed infrastructure, railroads, factories, and farms, crippling the Confederacy's ability to wage war. This wasn't just about winning battles, it was about dismantling the logistical backbone of the enemy, making it impossible for them to feed, arm, or move their forces, ultimately bringing the war to a swifter conclusion. The First World War brought logistics to an unprecedented industrial scale. The stalemate of trench warfare, coupled with the introduction of new technologies like machine guns, heavy artillery, and poison gas, demanded an endless torrent of supplies. Shells for artillery were expended by the millions, food for entire armies had to be moved daily, and endless streams of replacement troops, equipment, and medical supplies were needed. The static nature of the front lines meant supply depots and railheads became prime targets, creating a constant, deadly dance between delivery and destruction. With the advent of submarines in World War I, and their much greater effectiveness in World War II, naval logistics faced a deadly new threat. German U-boats targeted merchant shipping, aiming to starve Britain into submission by cutting off its vital food and raw material imports. The response was the convoy system, merchant ships sailing in large groups, protected by naval destroyers, frigates, and later, aircraft. This system, though costly, proved critical in sustaining the Allied war effort, ensuring the uninterrupted flow of supplies across the Atlantic and other major oceans. It was a logistical battle fought at sea. World War II was the ultimate logistical challenge, a global conflict fought across multiple continents and oceans. From the D-Day landings, which required moving hundreds of thousands of men and vehicles across the English Channel, to the Red Ball Express, a massive truck convoy system that delivered desperately needed supplies from Normandy to the front lines, logistics determined the pace and success of Allied operations. fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and food had to be transported reliably, despite constant enemy action, demanding incredible coordination and ingenuity on an unprecedented scale. World War II also saw the emergence of air power as a critical logistical tool, capable of bypassing enemy lines and blockades. The most iconic example came after the war, during the Berlin airlift of 1948-49. When the Soviet Union blockaded West Berlin, cutting off all ground and water access, the Western Allies responded with a monumental aerial supply operation. For nearly a year, Allied aircraft flew hundreds of thousands of missions, delivering food, fuel, and vital supplies to the besieged city, demonstrating the power of air logistics to overcome even the most formidable political and physical barriers. Today, military logistics has evolved into a highly sophisticated, technology-driven discipline. Global supply chains, often leveraging commercial shipping and air freight, move equipment and personnel with astonishing speed and precision. Satellite tracking, advanced inventory management systems, and data analytics ensure that every piece of equipment, every ration, and every soldier can be tracked and directed efficiently. The emphasis is on just-in-time delivery, minimizing vulnerable stockpiles and maximizing responsiveness, allowing modern forces to operate globally with unprecedented agility. The principles of military logistics extend far beyond traditional warfare. In humanitarian aid and disaster relief operations, the same organizational prowess and speed are critical to saving lives. When natural disasters strike or humanitarian crises unfold, military logistics assets, cargo planes, ships, engineering units, are often the first responders. They provide essential services, transport medical teams, and deliver life-saving supplies to remote or devastated regions, demonstrating that the unseen engine can be a force for immense good, swiftly bringing order and aid to chaos. Looking ahead, military logistics continues to innovate. Autonomous vehicles, from drones delivering small payloads to self-driving trucks, promise to revolutionize last-mile delivery and reduce risk to personnel. Cyber logistics, securing the digital infrastructure of supply chains, becomes increasingly vital. Even space-based logistics, potentially delivering resources or enabling orbital platforms, is moving from science fiction to strategic planning. As the nature of conflict evolves, so too will the unseen engine that powers it, always adapting to ensure that forces can operate wherever and whenever they are needed. From the Roman roads that bound an empire to the vast airlifts that saved a city, from Napoleon's frozen retreat to the precision of modern supply chains, the story of military logistics is the quiet truth behind the grand narratives of war. It is less glamorous than a charge, less dramatic than a siege, but consistently more decisive. The ability to move, provision, and maintain forces isn't just a supporting function, it is the fundamental prerequisite for victory. Ultimately, battles are indeed won by soldiers, but wars are truly won, or lost, by the relentless, unseen engine of logistics.